Unit 19. Exercises 1 through 3. Although my family weren't really all that excited about having animals in the house, they'd been persuaded to take on a 2-year-old dog called Sally, a bull terrier boxer cross. She was very attractive, being smooth-haired, mostly black, with a white chest, and reddish-brown eyebrows and rings around her legs, and a thin reddish-brown line around her white chest, dividing it from the rest of her black coat. Mum had been assured she was well-behaved and non-aggressive, but she didn't suspect just how thoroughly I was going to test that guarantee out. On the day of her arrival, Sally was given a big bone and led into the garden with it, where she soon settled down and started chewing contentedly. A few minutes later, Mum was distracted by the arrival of a neighbor, and when she came back into the kitchen and looked out of the window, she saw, to her horror, her 2-year-old me tottering across the grass to the dog and bending down to grab the bone from her jaws. Not having time to do anything more than yell out of the window, which might have triggered a bad reaction from the dog, my mother could only watch in fear at what might happen next. Apparently, after I'd casually reached down and grabbed the bone, I walked off with it, with poor Sally following along behind me. That moment was the start of a lifelong friendship, because Sally was 2 and I was 2 when she came to the family. We grew up together. She was my constant escort and guardian. I remember my Uncle Phil, who was a very kindly soul, waving an arm around my head once as he tried to swat a fly away from me. Thinking he was going to hit me, Sally leapt between us and grabbed and held his arm. She didn't bite him, she never bit, but she held him tight all the same. From quite a young age, I was completely safe to wander around the countryside, so long as I had my guardian with me. She was my playmate and my best friend for 12 years, and we went everywhere together. Exercises 4 through 6. Mr. Johnson's 3 sons worked together in a local trading company. One Monday, Mr. Johnson went down to the company to speak to his son's manager. The manager came out of his office and introduced himself. "Please come into my office," he said, and he motioned for Mr. Johnson to go first. As they walked into the office, the manager invited him to take a seat in the chair in front of the desk. Mr. Johnson sat down, but he seemed to be somewhat displeased. The manager asked him what he could help him with. "Well, all 3 of my boys got hired here the same day. All of them have been here the same amount of time, worked the same number of hours, and even have the same position," Mr. Johnson began. "That's a problem for you?" asked the manager. "No, it's not that," Mr. Johnson continued to explain. "What I don't understand is, if they all have the same position and do the same amount of work, why do they all make different amounts of money?" The manager listened to him quietly and fully understood his concerns. He wanted to explain everything to Mr. Johnson, but then decided that it would be easier to show him why there was a significant difference in the salaries. He called down to the warehouse and asked for the first son. When he answered, the manager asked him about the shipment that was supposed to have arrived that morning. The first son said he knew nothing about any shipment. Then the manager called down for the second son and also asked him about the shipment. This son at least knew of the shipment, but he couldn't confirm whether it had arrived or not. But he was going to find out and later inform the manager. Then the manager called down for the third son. When the manager asked him about the shipment, he seemed to know all about it. "Yes, sir, it arrived this morning. I did inventory on it and found that it's a crate short, but don't worry, sir. I already sent a fax to the company's office, and they are replacing the crate in the next shipment." The manager turned to Mr. Johnson and said, "Now do you see why they make different amounts of money?" Exercises 7 through 9. Dira was a shoeshine boy. He lost his father when he was very young, and now lived with his mother and sister. He was a hard-working boy. After school, he would sit near a cinema hall and polish shoes for a living. One day it was very hot. Dira sat under a tree, counting his day's earnings, when he overheard a passer-by. "A thief has just escaped from the jewelry shop." Dira stopped counting. He quickly put his money back in his pocket and asked the passer-by, "When? Where?" "Just now. He stole a gold necklace and managed to run away. They say he has a beard." So saying, the passer-by went on his way. Dira was about to go towards the jewelry shop to find out more details when a customer accosted him. "Boy, polish my shoes nicely. There's no hurry," he said, looking at his wristwatch. The customer was wearing a blue suit and a red tie. He looked like a rich man. Dira sat down immediately to polish his shoes, though his mind was still on the theft. Through the corner of his eye, Dira saw 2 policemen approaching. He was eager to ask them about the theft, but the customer seemed to have lost his temper. "You silly boy, you're not doing your job well," he cried, glancing quickly at the policeman. So Dira concentrated his attention on polishing the shoe. He said, "The other shoe, sir." The man said, "Hurry up, there are only 2 minutes for the show to begin." Funny, Dira said to himself. A moment ago he was in no hurry, but now he is in a great hurry. As Dira was about to shine it with a cloth, he found something sticking out of it at the back. What can it be? Dira wondered. He bent his head to take a closer look. My goodness! "That'll do, boy. It's time," the man said, taking his foot off the stand. Dira quickly tied the ends of the laces of the 2 shoes and got up without taking the coin the man held out. He rushed to the policeman. The man fell flat on his face when he tried to walk. While he was struggling to get up, Dira was back with the 2 policemen. They caught hold of him. Yes, he was the jewel thief. The gold necklace was found in his shoe and his beard in his pocket. He was taken to the police station. Dira was rewarded by the police and by the jeweler. His school, too, honored him with a medal for his bravery. Exercises 10 through 12. While working for the State Parks Management Department in Michigan, Rob was told from his boss that the state had been very concerned recently with the large number of boating accidents that occur on state lakes and wished to reduce this number. The boss asked him to help determine some ways to reduce the number of boating accidents in the state. Rob was excited about this assignment. This was a chance for him to impress his boss by solving a serious problem. Rob started the project by looking at a lot of data. He wanted to see what events were associated with boating accidents, and he used his knowledge of statistics to calculate correlations. Other governmental agencies and departments were generous in sharing data with Rob, and he found many interesting correlations. The most fascinating thing, though, was that there was a very high correlation in the state of Michigan between ice cream consumption and boating accidents. Rob was quite excited about finding this correlation. First, it was a strong correlation. Second, it seemed like an event the state might be able to do something about. There were other strong correlations with boating accidents, such as the correlation between boating accidents and temperature, but most of these were things the state had no control over. Rob realized the state might have some control over ice cream consumption. Just 1 short week after receiving the assignment, he marched into his boss's office with a plan to reduce boating accidents in the state. Rob proposed to his boss that there be no ice cream sales at all state beaches and all state parks that include a lake. To make doubly sure that there would be no ice cream consumption on state lakes, he proposed banning ice cream sales in all stores within 2 miles of any Michigan lake. The potential impact of this proposal was large, since no person in Michigan is ever more than 6 miles from an inland lake. Rob knew the Michigan dairy industry would not be happy with the proposal, and his boss would likely reject it, but he presented it to him anyway. Rob still has his job with the Parks Management Department, but his ice cream proposal did not go over well. The boss laughed at him and dismissed him from his office.